Bit of a Geno skeptic. So number 4, I have the Cardinals. I'm not sure if Brew does as well. We'll find out. Just a brutal defensive roster. I think Gannon's a very good defensive coach. The personnel's not there. They're already dealing with injuries, including to some of their draft picks this year. The offensive line, Paris Johnson's awesome. The rest of the offensive line is just questions galore. There's 3 good teams in the division. I obviously love Marvin. I know Greg's higher on Kyler than me. To me, it's just, it is going to sound bad. I think they are probably the best last place team in football. Yeah. I think that they might be the best of all the last place teams, but you gotta, and so in that division, someone's got to come in last. Yeah. 3rd, Seattle. And man, this was the hardest team for me to leave out of the playoffs. Yeah. So I won't, we'll see when the whole thing is revealed, the team that they just missed their spot out on. But last year seemed like a super down year. They won 9 games. I like Geno. I love Mike McDaniel taking over that defense with all that talent, especially on the back end. And I think he can coach up the front end because I think, you got a career year out of Clowney in Baltimore. Van Noy played great. Yeah. So I love that part of it. Obviously, I said Mike McDonald. I think I said McDaniel, but their new head coach from Baltimore, Mike McDonald. Obviously, their wide receivers are great, but the offensive line in the running game was just not enough for me to get them in the playoffs. I think there'd be around 9 wins again. Number 2, in the playoffs, the San Francisco 49ers.
Wow.
Way too many red flags for me to say they're just going to skate to 12 wins. Last year, it seemed like they were dominant start to finish. They didn't win 14 games. They won 13 games. They won 12 games. Do I think that the Ayuk still, we don't know. Trent Williams, at this point, I'm adding to the board, might miss games. Like the fact that training camp's now over. If he's just trying to skip it, it would be, he might miss games. Christian McCaffrey dinged. Bruce guy, Ricky Pearsall. I think he's made it through 3 or 4 real practices. Greg, I'm just curious. Does a shoulder injury, that doesn't come up a lot for a wide receiver during the year. He'll just be fine from here on out? I don't know. That seems like a tough one. And in their last preseason game, 2 of their rotational defensive linemen got dinged. So all of that, and Brew gave Brock Purdy a D for the offseason. That's not great. It's going to hurt his feelings. It's going to get back to him. And the Super Bowl hangover, that to me is enough for them to go from 12 wins to 10 wins. Again, it's, you know what I mean? It's not, I'm not saying I have them in the playoffs. I think they'll be fine, but I don't think they'll be dominant, which of course then puts the Rams at number 1. I think this should be the best offense in the NFC. I think that you're going to, Cooper Kupp is good as whenever he's healthy. I don't know how much longer he'll be healthy. Right. Puka's excellent. I love both their running backs, Kieran Williams and Blake Corum, the kid from Michigan. I think will be instantly effective. They have my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year in Jared Verse. They spent their 2nd-round pick on his teammate Fisk. Listen, I think Stafford is bonus prediction. I'm not in the dark horse MVP business. Ooh. I'm in the sleeper MVP business. Matt Stafford, sleeper MVP pick. I think the Rams are a 12-win team. I think the Rams win the division. I think the Rams have the best offense in the NFC. There's the NFC West.
Great pick.
Okay. Those are some picks. Okay, so I actually agree with a lot of what Nick is saying. I don't know if I'm necessarily drawing all the same conclusions, but I do agree with plenty of what Nick is saying. I don't think the Seahawks are going to be as good as people think. I think someone like a Geno Smith really needs to be supported. I understand he's turned his career around, but I think he really, really needs to be supported with some true weapons as well as a great offensive mind to tie it all together. If you're just leaving that to Geno Smith to his own vices, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. I think he is still very mistake prone, and that's where Geno Smith can kind of get in trouble. And I think it's he can be comfortable, but like with a snap in the fingers, he suddenly is uncomfortable. I mean, that's what I saw all last season. It was like Geno Smith, and then like suddenly you had plenty of moments where you're just like, he doesn't look comfortable at all right now. So I think that is just something that who Geno Smith is, and that's always going to hold back the Seahawks from that matter. But now to the more crux of it all, the 49ers and the Rams. Listen, I go back and forth between these two teams. I can't wait to make both Rams fans and 49ers fans angry. I really don't know. I agree with what Nick is also saying in terms of, some of the injury issues with the 49ers and like what is going on with Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey is already dealing with a calf injury and the season hasn't even started yet, and Pearsall, and it's just like, and Debo, like we know these guys are going to miss games, and it's not to say that they can't hold it together. I just think that last year they had everything going for them. Everything going for them. They were the healthiest you could ever expect to be, the cheapest you could ever expect them to be, the hungriest you could ever expect them to be. Like, everything was perfect, and they still just came up short. And that's tough. That's devastating. It's not to say that they're not, that I don't believe in the whole Super Bowl hangover. Like, that I don't buy into. Maybe once upon a time that was a thing. In modern football, especially when you got a coach like a Shanahan and you got weapons like McCaffrey and whatnot, I don't believe that. I just don't think I just don't think that's going to happen for the 49ers. So I think they'll still be very competitive. I just think that they're 10 to 15% more fragile than they were last season, and that can become a legitimate problem. And it's a similar thing with the Rams. The Rams have some fragility too. Can Stafford actually stay healthy? Can Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp stay healthy? Right? Like, there are legit questions. Will their defense take a step back? What's the situation with that? I really bet on a lot for who's your coach, who's your quarterback, right? Do you have a pass rusher? Do you have some weapons on offense? And like, the Rams have that. They do. I'm a firm believer in Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford is a great quarterback. I don't think he's going to be an MVP sleeper. The only way that happens is the Rams, they have to have the number 1 seed, and it has to be like dominant. I just don't know if Matthew Stafford will be able to get that, especially because I think if there's another team out of the AFC who's like the number 1 seed, whether if it's the Chiefs, Mahomes, if it's CJ Stroud and the Texans, CJ Stroud, right? Like, so I find that a little bit harder to believe that I could see maybe be in the discussion, but not in the way that anyone thinks he legitimately has a chance to win the MVP. And that's not an indictment at Stafford at all. That's just how I see how people in the media talk about the MVP and how those narratives get constructed. But I think the Rams will be a good team. They were a really good team last year. They absolutely could have beaten the Lions. They could have. And I had the Lions beating the Rams, by the way. So it's like, but they absolutely could have won that game. If a few things kind of go their way, they win that game, and then who knows, quite frankly. You just never know. So I think to count out the Rams would be a mistake. It's hard to count out, at the very minimum, when you have a top coach, a great quarterback, and legit weapons, that they're not going to be competitive, no matter what. Someone like a McVay and a Stafford and some weapons, that alone will make you a force. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the 49ers. My whole thing also with the 49ers is that I keep saying this is like, who will Brock Purdy be this year? Will he be the same quarterback, or will he improve 5-10%? Will he be able to take a step forward? If he can take a step forward, then I would lean more towards the 49ers. If he stays the same, which isn't bad, that's not like, the worst thing either, they will still be a great team, but I could see Matthew Stafford especially potentially being a difference maker and being able to then go ahead and win that division. But again, this isn't like super strong predictions. As I always say, when I don't have a strong, opinion about something, like, I always want to express that. I have no desire to give like a definitive opinion just because things have to be black and white. And I don't think you guys think that way, and so I don't think that way. I understand why Rams fans want it to be the Rams, and I understand why 49ers fans want it to be the 49ers, but that's just not how I operate. And so usually, and I feel like I'm going to make another video about this with regards to the Lions and the Packers winning the division. And when I make videos like this, I just make everyone upset. So hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. Like, to me, this is another division that I'm just really excited to watch, to see who wins. The only thing that I am confident about is the Cardinals and the Seahawks not being a legitimate threat to winning the division. That's just a bridge too far. I know people are high on the Seahawks. I just don't see it. That would be really surprising to me. I mean, I just don't see it. Again, it's not to say that they're going to be garbage or trash. I just fail to see. And Greg Jennings, has talked about before that he has the 49ers missing the playoffs. He has the 49ers missing the playoffs. So he has the Rams winning the division. So it's really interesting. It's just, if the 49ers miss the playoffs, I think the only way the 49ers miss the playoffs is if they really struggle to stay healthy. If they struggle to stay healthy, and of course, if Purdy is he just had 2 good years and that's it. He just got lightning in a bottle and he's really not that good. Then that could happen. But if they're able to run it back and stay healthy and be legit, I struggle to see how they miss the playoffs. I see them at least still in the playoffs. But yeah, the way whether they end up getting winning the division or not is probably going to come down to a lot of these head-to-head matchups, quite frankly, right? Can the Rams go 2-0 against the 49ers? Is it just split 1-1, right? Like, that's often how these things unfold. So there really is no prediction, quite frankly. That's also why I don't have such strong opinions, because there's no real reliable way to predict how we think this will unfold, because there's just so many variables. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think it's going to be the Rams, the 49ers, the Seahawks, or the Cardinals to win the division? Who do you think? Do you think 2 of those teams will make the playoffs? 1, maybe even 3? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.